The event will start shortly, but prior to the event commencement, we'd like to play a short video on what the Institute of South Asian Studies does. So please watch us, and we will start the session shortly. Thank you.
The Institute of South Asian Studies, ISAS, is an autonomous research institute at the National University of Singapore. Established in 2004, ISAS studies contemporary South Asia. ISAS researches on the following 8 South Asian countries: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. The establishment of ISAS reflects the increasing economic and political importance of South Asia and the strong historical links between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Singapore's second Prime Minister and Emeritus Senior Minister Goh Chok Tong is the patron of ISAS. The think tank was officially launched by Mr. Goh in 2005. The founding members of ISAS Management Board were Professor Tan Cho Chuan, Ambassador Gopinath Pillai, Professor Tan Tai Yong, Professor Lim Chin, Mr. Heng Swee Kiat, Mr. Peter Ho, and Mr. Eddie Teo. Ambassador Gopinath Pillai is the founding chairman. ISAS disseminates its research output via 2 key channels. Its regular scholarly papers includes briefs, insights, working papers, special reports, and published works. The second mode is regular intellectual exchange of ideas and sharing of insights at ISAS events. These include conferences, lectures, seminars, symposiums, workshops, and panel discussions. Through these platforms, ISAS seeks to promote understanding of this vital region and communicate knowledge and insights about it to policymakers, the business community, academia, and civil society in Singapore and beyond. ISAS's signature publications include the Encyclopedia of the Indian Diaspora, the Encyclopedia of the Sri Lankan Diaspora, and commemorative volume on Singapore and India's 50 years of diplomatic relations.
We involve ourselves in a larger variety of topics. This is one of the uniqueness of ISAS, in that we are not only concerned about the countries, we are interested in the progress made by people who have migrated from South Asia into the various lands. And this is a very large community.
South Asia is one of the most dynamic regions in the world, with a population of 1.67 billion people. The region's economic growth stands at 7.1% over the last decade as of 2015.
ISAS is a credible organization which has done a fantastic job in bringing all together to deliver the purpose of starting a dialogue which is meaningful, which is boundaryless, which is full of sort of aspirations and hope, truly become to me like a Davos for the South Asian in the making.
With regular scholarly outputs and a plethora of events such as book launches, seminars, conferences, and dialogue exchanges, both locally and internationally, ISAS has helped to bridge Singapore with its South Asian partners. ISAS's events are attended by leading policymakers and businessmen. ISAS provides a knowledge exchange platform to further bilateral relations with South Asian countries. Signature events include South Asian Diaspora Convention, the Singapore Symposium organized overseas, India-Singapore Strategic Dialogues, International Annual Conference, launched by Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong in 2011 in Singapore. The South Asian Diaspora Convention, or SADC, engages the South Asian diaspora in issues relating to the region and its global connectivity. The convention brings together leading policymakers, business leaders, internationally acclaimed academics, writers, and media personalities. Speakers discuss and debate critical issues in business, economy, and policy that affects the region's future and its role in international affairs. The 2013 edition of SADC witnessed the inauguration of the Outstanding Member of the South Asian Diaspora Award, or AMSAD Award for short. Mr. Murli Kewalram Chandrai was the first recipient of the award. The 6th President of Singapore, Mr. S.R. Nathan, was bestowed the AMSAD Award at SADC 2016 for his outstanding service and contributions to Singapore and the South Asian diaspora. ISAS holds the Singapore Symposium in key South Asian cities. The symposium provides a platform for top political leaders in Singapore to engage with the region's political, business, and academic communities. Initiated in 2009, the inaugural Singapore Symposium was helmed by Singapore's founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew in New Delhi. Since then, ISAS has held the Singapore Symposiums in the Indian cities of Delhi, Chennai, and Mumbai, and Sri Lanka's capital city, Colombo.
The advantage of Singapore for the South Asian diaspora is that irrespective of whether the individual is from Nepal, from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka, or from India, he can find in Singapore a home from which he can channel investment into different countries. So it becomes a center point of attraction from which investment can radiate. And Singapore can play a very, very big role in making this happen.
In addition to its mainstream objective, ISAS also weaves in soft aspects of South Asia, such as poetry, literary arts, and music into its administration. In 2014, as part of its student outreach program, ISAS organized an evening with Oscar Award winner and Indian music director A.R. Rahman. In appreciation of migrant workers' talent and their contributions to the Singapore economy, an evening of poetry reading was organized in 2015. In the same year, ISAS gathered top-notch South Asian writers to treat the literary community.
South Asian diaspora has made a tremendous contribution to global material progress, but there's another sector, another segment in which they have made a huge contribution, and that is the non-technological sectors, intellectual resources. They have come forward with ideas like microcredit, ideas like non-formal education, which are being emulated all over the world.
ISAS is considered as one of the premier international research institutes studying contemporary South Asia. But the think tank, which turned 10 in 2015, does not rest on its laurels. ISAS looks forward to pursuing its mission with greater vigor in the years to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will start the session shortly. May I kindly request you to switch your mobile phones and other beeping devices to the silent mode throughout the session, please. Thank you. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். Ambassador Gopinath Pillai, Chairman of the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore and Singapore's Ambassador at Large and Special Envoy to Andhra Pradesh, and our distinguished panelists, Dr. S Narayan, Visiting Senior Research Fellow at ISAS and former Finance Secretary, Government of India, and former Economic Advisor to the Prime Minister of India, Mr. N Ravi, Publisher, the Hindu Group of Newspapers and Chairman of the Singapore Trust of India, Mr. R Poornalingam, former Health Secretary, Government of India, Mrs. Vanitha Datla, Vice Chairperson, Elico Ltd and Managing Director, Elico Healthcare Services Limited. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. On behalf of the Institute of South Asian Studies at the National University of Singapore, it gives us great pleasure to welcome you to this evening's ISAS event. The program consists of two segments. First, we will have a panel discussion on Do Welfare Politics Lead to Development? The Tamil Nadu Experience. This will be followed by the launch of ISA's publication, The Dravidian Years, Politics and Welfare in Tamil Nadu, authored by senior scholar at ISAS, Dr. S Narayan. And to start the proceedings, it's my great pleasure to invite ISA's Chairman, Ambassador Gopinath Pillai, and Singapore's Special Envoy to Andhra Pradesh and Ambassador at Large to deliver the welcome remarks. Ambassador Pillai, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I talk a little bit of the subject, let me first start by thanking Dr. Narayan for organizing this and inviting ISAS to be part of it. I'm very happy to be able to participate in this. If I don't embarrass Dr. Narayan, I'd like to say one or two words about him. Dr. Narayan was the first head of research for ISAS. ISAS was started 15 years ago. Suddenly I was summoned and told that you will head the new South Asian Institute. We have East Asia, we have Southeast Asia, we have Middle East, and 15 years ago, ISAS was born. And the university normally goes through a process of advertising, go through reviews, and this. I know that all this will take a long time. So being an impatient private sector person, I decided I'll cut through this. And poor Dr. Narayan was my first victim. I'd read many of his articles in the Mint. I'd met him in one or two functions. He came to Singapore at one time to chastise Singapore for not having accepted the offer of doing our airport in India. And so I was familiar with him. And at some function in Vizag, he was there having breakfast, a quiet breakfast with his wife. And some tables away, I was having breakfast, and I spotted him. So I thought this is a good opportunity. Yesterday, our president of our national university said that Singaporeans were paranoid about their survival. Now, one other quality that Singaporeans have is they are very opportunistic. And being a Singaporean, I decided I will not be shy about being opportunistic. I went and presented myself in front of Dr. Narayan. And I said, we have met before, you may not remember. But, we have just started this institute. And I need a person to head the research. I've read many of your articles, and I think you will be a suitable candidate. And would you come with me and be my partner? He's a very gentle, nice man who cannot say no early in the morning to an elderly person. So he fumbled, he looked embarrassed, and he said, drop me a note. And having been used to many civil servants, I always carry a note. So, note was presented, and Dr. Narayan has then joined us as head of research. Now, Singaporeans have a third quality, and that is loyalty to those who have done favors to them. So today, after 15 years, we still keep in touch with Dr. Narayan. He comes from time to Singapore. And I'm one of the first to call him and ask him to explain to me various things that are happening in India. Singapore, we have limited experience. We are not sometimes used to the sort of things that happen in other countries, particularly a diverse country like Singapore, like India. And Dr. Narayan would very patiently explained to me why things were happening the way they are. And that is the story of Dr. Narayan's association with ISAS. And if only one party had benefited from it, I would say we have benefited. But I hope it has been of some satisfaction to Dr. Narayan. Now about Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is one of the top performing states in India, with the development indicators that sometimes trump the other states, all India levels. Let me cite some examples. The poverty rate, I'm told, is at 12% vis-a-vis the all India level of 22%. Literacy is at 78% as compared to the all India level of 70%. Electrification of household is at 98% versus all India level of 80%. Lastly, labor force participation rate is at 60% in comparison to the all India rate of 56%. Today, Tamil Nadu is one of India's richest states, with a steady decline in poverty since 1994. Tying in with the social welfare policies, I just mentioned women in Tamil Nadu have reported improvements in maternal health and schooling. Poverty among the scheduled castes in Tamil Nadu has been lower than that of the other Indian states, and education has made significant progress, with children staying longer in school. The performance of Tamil Nadu in terms of these development indicators prove the tact and effectiveness of the state government's policies. Both the leading parties in Tamil Nadu base their ideologies on welfare policies and social reforms. The DMK and AIDMK largely target human development indicators and seek to cover vast requirements of the population, including fishermen, farmers, women, students, and so on. The parties have pursued the electoral following through widely publicized welfare schemes, such as maternity assistance, subsidies on public transport, grants for students, and pension packages. Historically, inclusion has played a key role in the foundation of Tamil Nadu, especially since both the leading parties have their roots in Dravidian inclusion policies. Likewise, at present, within the social welfare policies, inclusion still plays a central role, albeit for a more heterogeneous demography. The inclusion of women and children and the poor, the senior citizens, among others, have been crucial in the state's social welfare policies. The Tamil Nadu case is interesting because it deviates from the other states in India which have pursued development through conventional methods of economic growth. The Tamil Nadu case builds upon the Keynesian economic theory, which argues that government investment in human resource development is a key contributor in pursuing economic development. These developments are in the form of providing education and healthcare that boost productivity and fuel development. On the contrary, the other Indian states have followed the Rostov economic growth model and have detached relationship between welfare policy and development. This model states that while social development is important, it cannot be achieved in the absence of growth. The contrast of these two models is important in understanding today's topic on whether welfare policies lead to development or the contrary, that development is in fact a necessary precondition that should be achieved prior to pursuing welfare. The panel is chaired by Dr. Narayan. It has several very distinguished people who are talking. In fact, I'm actually stealing their time to make this speech. So I will end it here. I want to thank you all for being here. It's a full house, and yesterday we had a function, also was a full house. And I hope you will find this interesting, and we will have more activities between ISAS and Tamil Nadu. And there is one event that is going to happen sometime late next year, October next year. We do something called the South Asian Diaspora Conference. This is held every 2 years, and it is usually a very interesting event with people coming from all over the world. We try and get interesting people as guest of honors, as speakers, and so on. And you see the cohesiveness that really exists. When you hear of SAC, quarreling away, you think these are very diverse and very disparate group. But normally, when they are in a neutral territory and they are allowed to air their views and so on, you find that there's so much in common among the countries of South Asia, starting from Afghanistan right up to Myanmar. It's culturally and in various ways, there is some commonality that we celebrate. And I hope you will remember it. I'll send our flyers and so on, and I hope you participate. Meanwhile, today, I hope you have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Pillai. It's my pleasure now to invite our panelists, Dr. S Narayan, Mr. N Ravi, Mr. R Poornalingam, and Mrs. Vanitha Datla on stage for the panel discussion. Panelists, please. Vanitha Datla, please. Thank you.
Hello. Mr. Gopinath Pillai, Chairman ISIS, Mr. Ravi, Mr. Poornalingam, Ms. Vanitha. Really quite honored to be here. And first of all, I must thank ISIS for all the association that I've had with them, very, very pleasant association. And in this particular case of really helping me to conceptualize and to go through this book. So it was between ISIS and the Tamil Nadu archives that this book was really conceptualized and written up. And I'm very, very grateful to ISIS for that. I just want to take just 5 minutes to talk about why this book emerged. Because I genuinely felt, having worked for 17, 18 years of my service here in Tamil Nadu before I went to the center, I genuinely felt that Tamil Nadu was very unique. It is unique because for several reasons. First of all, when the Dravidian parties came to power in 1967, they brought a social ideology into governance, which had not happened in any other state. You could argue that in Kerala in 1957, the communist ideology formed the base of further development in that state. But the difference between the two ideologies is communism basically talks about removal of capital, replacement of the capitalist by the proletarian classes. Here, it was much more gentle. The changes that have happened in Tamil Nadu after 1967 are as fundamental, as important as what happened perhaps in Russia after the communist revolution. But those changes happened in a very, very inclusive manner through policies, ideologies, programs, and substantially through welfare programs. And this to me appeared to be something very, very special and peculiar. And the real question that I was asking is, how did it happen in Tamil Nadu? And at one end was the political class. At the other end was definitely the bureaucracy which helped all this to happen. And the third end was the people. The people were expecting certain changes, participating in the changes, welcoming the changes, and therefore the people. So this combination of institutions, politics, and the people was very unique in Tamil Nadu. Did all things go well? Not necessarily, and I am sure the panel would have a lot of comments about programs which, to their mind, actually did not contribute either to welfare or to development, but only to expenditure. They would have a lot of things to say about classes of people which were marginalized in these programs. But looking at it from another 10,000 feet, I would say that this kind of a social change exercise is not being practiced in any other state. And several states, as you know, are suffering because this kind of social change has not happened. If there is a Patel agitation in Gujarat, if there is a Jat agitation in Haryana, and if there are class agitations happening in UP, and that is because this adjustment, social adjustment, has not taken place. And I know for a fact that some years back, Mr. Karunanidhi used to tell me that, why are they struggling with these issues? These issues are so easy to solve. And he was talking about other states and saying that why are they struggling with all this reservation and other issues? These issues are easy to solve because he had actually solved these issues during his regime there. So that was my reason for writing this. Now, whether I am right or not, I will leave it to the panel to judge. And what I would, the way we will go about it is that I request the panelists to make the remarks in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we will open up the floor for questions, because I do hope that we will have a lively debate on this particular subject. So can I, at the beginning, request Mr. Ravi, publisher Hindu Group, to give us his views.
Ambassador Gopinath Pillai, Dr. Narayanan, Ms. Vanitha Datla, Mr. Poornalingam, distinguished guests, I am delighted to participate in this panel discussion, and I am thankful to the National University of Singapore and the Institute of South Asian Studies for bringing into focus a vitally important issue of welfare policies and development in Tamil Nadu. I must confess, though, that I am the odd person out here, not being associated with either administration as a policy maker or as an academic or economist. I come here as an observer for some decades of the Tamil Nadu polity and the state's economy, and this caveat applies to whatever I am going to say. I've had the benefit of having read Dr. Narayanan's excellent book, The Dravidian Years, that reflects his close association as an administrator, policy maker, observer, and economist all rolled into one, it is indeed a perspective that is rare to come by, and I am most thankful to him for this valuable addition to the literature on Tamil Nadu and on welfare policies in general. The term welfare policies has been understood differently by different people. There is a classic notion of the cradle to grave security that includes provision by the state of basic sustenance, education, health care, jobs, unemployment benefits, old age pensions, and so on. This list has now expanded beyond recognition to include not just free rice, but it extends all the way to free laptops, subsidized mopeds, and free cell phones as well. It has expanded with special programs for children, women, students, rural folk, farmers, and for the general population. To this list of welfare policies, political parties also tend to add such measures as the free supply of free power and water to farmers, which is a form of production subsidy. In its 2011 election manifesto for the state assembly elections, the AIADMK offered the following: grinders, mixers, electric fans, laptop computers, 4 grams of gold thalis, 50,000 cash for women's marriage, green houses, 20 kilos of rice free to all ration card holders, even those above the poverty line, and free cattle and sheep. These additions beyond what is deemed as essential are derisively referred to as freebies. In the public discourse, welfare schemes are viewed in many different ways. Some, such as nutrition supplements, free noon meals, and health care, for instance, are viewed as strengthening the capabilities of the poor to function as productive and comfortable citizens. Others, such as the Rural Employment Guarantee Program, that assures 150 days of work for every family at the minimum wage, are primarily income transfer programs, even though they nominally aim at creating tangible public assets such as roads and canals. It is the third category, comprising such programs as the free distribution of color television sets and so on, that are at the heart of the debate on what are called freebies. Interestingly, the Supreme Court waded into this debate when the promises of freebies in the election manifesto of the DMK, which for the first time promised color television sets in 2006, and the AIADMK, which promised a host of gifts including mixers, grinders, laptops, and gold chains in 2011, were challenged in a case. The main ground of challenge was that such promises amount to offering bribes to voters, and that the government can spend only for public purposes, not for gifts to individuals or for adding to private assets. As you may know, the Supreme Court rejected the petition to ban such freebies, noting that the court cannot legislate to make such promises an election offense. In the course of this case, it also addressed several economic issues and concluded that the notion of poverty and welfare are dynamic, and what was considered luxury at one time may now be regarded as a necessity. That television sets may serve an educational purpose, that the right to livelihood means more than just bare subsistence, that largesses cannot be said to be divorced from welfare policies, and they in fact could go to meet the directive principles of state policy which enjoin the state to check economic disparities. While the court concluded that the judicial interference is not possible in such cases, merely because it's not good for the state or money cannot be found, it still said that the reality cannot be ruled out, that distribution of freebies undoubtedly influences all people. It shakes the root of free and fair elections to a large degree. And it directed the Election Commission to frame regulations for political parties' manifestos. The Election Commission did that in sometime in 2013 or 14, and it said trust of the voters should be sought only on promises which are possible to be fulfilled. And they said the manifestos should also reflect the rationale for the promises and broadly indicate the ways and means to meet the financial requirements for it. Despite such changes, despite such directives, not much has changed in the approach of political parties in the state. Only they have been forced to include a statement along with the manifesto promises on how the finances can be found for the implementation. And typically, they come out with just a bland statement that revenue buoyancy will take care of the additional fund requirements. Even after this, the AIADMK manifesto for 2016 elections, in addition to farm loan waivers and 100 units of free electricity, cell phones to all ration card holders, and 50% subsidy for women to buy mopeds, had been promised. It is interesting that the two main Dravidian parties do not differ on the social equity agenda, comprising mainly reservations in educational institutions and government jobs. This social equity approach has come to be regarded as a task that has been more or less completed. The competition between the parties, therefore, has shifted to welfare policies and benefits being promised. In economic research, political competition has been found to have a positive impact on human development indicators. In the case of Tamil Nadu, it seems to have resulted in an expansion of welfare policies. And in this task, the state administration, comprising the permanent civil service, represented here by the exemplars Dr. Narayan and Mr. Poornalingam, has focused on delivery and has been very efficient in delivering these services to the people. In fact, that is what made for the success of these programs and of the welfare policies in the state. Though Dr. Narayanan also points out that the administration has been focusing on efficiency and not so much on innovation, leaving the design and the type of programs to be decided by the political heads. What of the economic impact of this plethora of welfare measures in the last 5 decades? Interestingly, the current finance minister and deputy chief minister of the state, Mr. O. Panellists, addressed this very question directly in his budget speech in March this year. He pointed to Tamil Nadu's progress on various fronts in comparison with other states in some critical areas and went on to assert that Tamil Nadu had made tremendous progress under the rule of the Dravidian parties. He gave various statistics, and among them, he said between 73-74 and 2011-12, Tamil Nadu had succeeded in reducing the poverty figure from 54.9 to 11.28. while the All India figure moved down from 54.8 to 22% during the same period. The state's economy is now the second largest in the country, and its per capita income is almost 1.5 times the national average. He asserted that all this was made possible because of the social equity agenda of the Dravidian parties, and declared that Tamil Nadu was a crucible of socio-economic transformation which other states must emulate. In addition to the social equity agenda, he might have well added the welfare policies of the two main Dravidian parties that have alternated in power in the state, the AIADMK ruling for a somewhat longer period than the DMK. The proliferation of welfare policies has thrown up two interesting issues for speculation. The first is whether spending on welfare measures, especially what are regarded as non-essential benefits, is the most effective way of addressing the needs of the poor and the most deserving. While the subsidy in the public distribution system is not targeted to the poor and is universal, the state government claims that there is a system of self-selection in availing of subsidized rice, and that a targeted system carries with it the danger of leaving out the most vulnerable. Most of the other schemes are targeted specifically for the poor, but the question is whether the targeting is overbroad to include the vast masses of the population, and whether the targeted group as a whole is deserving of the benefits. Again, how many of the benefits go to strengthening income earning and living capabilities remains to be studied. The second issue is whether the spending on welfare programs would qualify as effective and equitable income transfer programs. In the 2018-19 budget of the state, for instance, total revenues amount to 1,76,000 crores, while the expenditure marked under the head of subsidies was some 76,000 crores. The state's revenue is mostly from indirect taxes, which are not very progressive, while the share of central taxes includes some income tax receipts as well as indirect taxes. It is an interesting topic for research to examine the composition of tax receipts from the state from the standpoint of equity and progressiveness. That will give an idea on whether the spending on welfare programs can be termed equitable income transfer from the better off to the poor, assuming that the poor are the real beneficiaries of the welfare policies. So, my point in all this is that the debate is still very much open on whether the welfare policies have contributed to the development of the state, whether they have contributed to the growth of the state, whether they, as Ambassador Pillai said earlier, the distinction between the Keynesian and the Rostow models of growth, whether that has come into sharp focus, the jury is still out there, and a lot of research needs to be done on this specific question. Let me once again conclude by thanking the National University of Singapore and ISAS and Dr. Narayanan for giving me this opportunity to address this question on Tamil Nadu's welfare policies.
Thank you very much, sir. And think thrown up a lot of points which will, I hope, come up during discussion. Now, can I request Mr. Poornalingam, the distinguished civil servant with a lot of experience in these areas.
I am also comfortable standing. Dr. Narayanan, Ambassador Dr. Gobinath Pillai, Dr. Ravi, Mrs. Vanitha, and friends. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Narayanan for inviting me for this very important debate. And also, I would like to congratulate him for writing a wonderful book which encourages such debates and which should be thoroughly studied by other states to find out how they can also rapidly progress. But the topic of discussion, he has given a topic, do welfare policies lead to development? I am not a professor, I am not an economist. And therefore, I am going to give practical illustrations of what really happened in Tamil Nadu in a selective way. Now, welfare policies is a general term. It can be divided into two groups, in my view. One is policies meant to enhance human capital. There are policies, more schools, more hospitals, more medicines. These are definitely welfare-oriented policies, but it has got a definite purpose. Then there are other policies like distribution, freebies, distribution of TV, mixies, cycles, laptops. Now I am told mobile phones are also available. So this kind of welfare policies, there are two sets. One is where the policies are aimed at developing the human capital, and the other policies are really, in my view, vote catching. If they give something free, they think that voters will vote for that party. The reason for this freebies coming up in a very big way in the last 10-15 years is that, as I think Dr. Ravi pointed out, that social change policies have really come to an end. And there is not much more to do. And therefore, they have to invent something new, the parties. And if one gave a TV, another gave a mixie, like that it was going on. A competitive policy to appease the public, the voter, that was the thing which was going on. But in my view, the policies that enhance human capital, the development of the human being, certainly they are useful. The investment on such welfare schemes are definitely very, very useful. Unfortunately, when I joined the government secretariat in 1974, I had the opportunity of looking at the budget at that time. At that time, the policies of the previous government, Congress government, were more towards infrastructure. They were not looking at the welfare. Even in the thinking in the finance department at that time used to be that anything on social welfare is a waste. That was the thinking. But it's not correct in my view. A lot of investment focus on social welfare departments, namely health, education, social welfare department. All these things were taking place. The budget increases very, very sharp over the years. That is the reason why Tamil Nadu has generally fared well in the entire country. But then, this direction of money into welfare schemes has to be very focused. I will give you an example of the electricity electricity distribution in Tamil Nadu. Dr. Pillai mentioned that it is 98%. But what he did not mention was, it was 98% in 1972. Not now. There should be some small hamlets which have been left out, that's all. Otherwise, 100% electrification. I became Additional Secretary Power in Government of India in 2003. I'm talking about 72, 70s. 2003, the Government of India was thinking of electrifying villages in Bihar and UP. Then I went as a consultant to Bihar in 2008-9, I think 2010 perhaps. From the plane, I saw only darkness all around, except a patch of lights in Patna. Then I asked the Chief Secretary there, because he happened to be my friend. He told me we have only about 100 megawatt of power, whereas Tamil Nadu had 7,000 megawatt of power. Of course, industries are there. This was the situation in 2010 in Bihar. Of course, something was done later on. So we achieved it because of the political goal of electrifying all villages. Simultaneously, there was a goal that these agriculturist pump sets should be given. I remember it was about 8 lakh pump sets were electrified in about a year or two. The government decided, the administrative machinery implemented it. This is again 1974-75. But then, what's the flip side of it? We free electricity to the agriculturists. I was myself chairman electricity board. I used to talk to agriculturists. How can anything be given free? We are producing electricity at 3 rupees. How can it be given free? Who will give it? Who will bear the cost? It should be some subsidy from somewhere, industrial subsidy. Industries were giving a subsidy. The government was not in a position to pay for this subsidy. So the agriculture will say, we are not getting remunerative prices, all those arguments everybody knows. But till 80s, I remember, the electricity was being paid for by the agriculturists, but at a lower rate. If the electricity used to be 50 paisa per unit, the farmers were paying 20 paisa. So it was okay. And some subsidy is there, but then they were paying. Now in 1990, the electricity was made free. It used to be, it was reduced to 10 paisa, then they said, why 10 paisa? They made it free. Now 33% of the consumption of the electricity board or production of the electricity board goes to the agriculture sector. Then what are the difficulties arising out of it? Since they don't pay, it's a very controversial subject. But then I used to say, my views are like this. If it is free, you don't even switch off the motor. These are all 5 HP, 10 HP, 25 HP motors. Your house will consume maximum 1 HP. That's all, the equivalent power. Whereas 25 HP, 50 HP, all these things, they were running all the time when electricity is available, and they are not bothered about switching it off. Then what happens? The groundwater level is going down every year. The figure is, I think, 1 foot per year, the groundwater level in the state is going down. So when I was chairman of electricity board, the government issued an order. These areas where the groundwater is very low, they called it red area, don't give electricity to the pump sets. I said, it's a very good order. Great, after a lot of analysis, these red dots were there throughout the state. In those places, no electricity would be given to pump sets. That's an order. But then, very soon, everybody agitated. They said, keep it in abeyance. The order was not implemented. It's a simple solution. People were shouting. I said, keep it in abeyance. So it was not implemented. We are over-exploiting the groundwater. And in Coimbatore area, 300 feet, 400 feet is common. Deep bore wells have come. They are consuming huge electricity. The result is, today the total debt of the electricity board is 90,000 crores, almost like ILFS. 90,000 crores. 90,000 crores of debt and 10,000 crores of losses every year. I don't know, how will the government going to meet all this? I don't know at all. Now, the welfare policy was good in the sense of electrifying all the villages, in the sense of giving power to all the pump sets because a lot of diesel is saved. But then the policy flaw was in giving it free. Even if it is 20 paisa or 30 paisa, the people who pay will be very careful in using the electricity. Considerable amount of savings would be there. Then again, another major scheme of Tamil Nadu government is noon meal scheme. And Dr. Narayanan has dealt with it elaborately in his book. There are different views on it. They spend about 2,000 crores in this scheme. I calculated because Dr. Narayanan invited me, I had to look at Google. I think I got some neck pain also because of looking at Google for a very long time. I looked at Google and searched out the data. It comes to something like 3,700 rupees per capita. There are about 53 lakh beneficiaries and about 2,000 crores. So about 3,500 rupees per beneficiary is being spent on it. Now, this is going on from probably 1990 for a long number of years. So I looked at the data whether the nutritional status of people of Tamil Nadu is better than the other states. When I looked at the National Family Health Survey figures, which came in 2015, I found that the stunting of children, that's an indication of malnutrition, that is short for the age, 0 to 5. The All India figure is 38. Our figure is 27. Not very much different. Telangana is 28 and Kerala 20. They didn't have these figures. Of course, you cannot say that nutrition improved just because of the noon meal scheme. There are other factors of income increase and the status of the people, education, all those things come in. But then if you look at the data as of 2015, we didn't see much of a difference. It is the same. So then the other objective of the noon meal scheme was to increase the enrollment in schools. But there again, it's a secular trend. More awareness, more people are going to schools, so enrollment keeps going up. So we cannot say that this is due to this program. Maybe I think Dr. Narayanan should take up a detailed study on this noon meal program, whether it is impact. I looked at some papers which says that it has to be redesigned in the new context. If you are spending 2,000 crores, can you not spend it better? Can you not spend it on something else and see that the people are benefited better? This kind of study from the Institute, National University of Singapore, will be very helpful, though policymakers may not read it at all. Then there are a number of other good schemes. I would say that there is a welfare scheme. There is a welfare scheme where 50,000 rupees is given to a girl child at the time of birth. It is invested on behalf of the child by the government with the maximum rate of interest in Tamil Nadu Power Finance Corporation. It becomes 3 lakhs at the age of 18. Now, this is given to every girl child up to 2. In the case of 2 children, it will be 25,000. But then the condition is that she should have studied up to 10th standard. This scheme was certainly innovative, targeted, focused. It encourages women education. And also the families think that girl child is not a burden. Because otherwise our system is to get a male child or infanticide was happening. So girl child is not a burden. 2 children are enough. I have seen many women getting the hysterectomy done after 2 girls. So much so that our TFR in the state is about 1.7, the lowest in the country. The total fertility rate, the replacement rate is only 1.7. Now, similarly, there are many good schemes in health sector. For example, this free medicine scheme. When I joined as a health secretary in 1985, the medicines were free. To my knowledge, the medicines were free in the government hospitals in Tamil Nadu for about 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. When I became consultant, I visited all these states, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal. I was surprised that even a state like Chhattisgarh, Bihar, medicine was not free. The budget was woefully inadequate. The total budget for Bihar was about 15 crores. Orissa also is like that. 15 crores. Nobody bothered about giving medicines to the people. They had to buy. If you go to Orissa, you will see around the government hospitals, there are private pharmacies. They are giving medicines. The doctor will prescribe, the fellows will have to go. Whereas for 50 years, it was free. Then fortunately, because Rajasthan started this free medicine scheme, and it was considered very good. They didn't know that it was a free medicine in Tamil Nadu for a long time. They also say, oh, Tamil Nadu is different, they got a lot of resources. When Rajasthan started, that the Hindi belt started, when Gehlot was the chief minister, then it caught the imagination of the entire northern belts, and they have started increasing the budget. Now free medicine scheme is there and everywhere, in almost all the entire states. The medicine is good. Then take, for example, the Bihar and UP. I have seen UP also. They don't have pharmacists. Whereas in Tamil Nadu, in those days, there were 10,000 pharmacists. How will they distribute medicine without pharmacists? I don't know. There are no nurses. There are no sub-centers. There is supposed to be a sub-center for 5,000 population. My time is up. You are getting up. I'll finish it in 2 minutes. So these facilities are all welfare, social welfare investments. But they are good investments. Creating sub-centers, creating hospitals, creating primary health centers. I would not be against it. Certainly needed. Only because these states have not invested in these infrastructures. Schools. I went to a school in Bihar. Just like that I went, there were only 2 teachers, about 400 students. And where are the other teachers? 5 is the sanctioned strength. 3 fellows are not missing. It's only very recent, 5 years. But such things are not there in Tamil Nadu. That is one of the reasons. So, my answer to the question is, welfare policies are important, necessary, but should be focused. It should not be on freebies. And Dr. Narayan raised a very important point, why Tamil Nadu did better than most of the states. But I think there is no time for me to answer that point. I answered the point which is raised for the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I mentioned in the book that one of the reasons Tamil Nadu did better is because of a good administration. I don't mean the top, of course the top officers, IAS officers, but right down to the ground level, the administrative hierarchy is still very, very efficient. Madam, now I request Mrs. Vanitha Datla to.
The dignitaries off stage and on dais, Ambassador Pillai, Dr. Narayan, Dr. Ravi and Poornalingam. A very good evening to all the esteemed guests assembled here today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Narayan for inviting me for this esteemed panel discussion. Believe me, when I actually met all my fellow panelists in the room just prior to coming to this, I was a little inhibited because looking at their experience and the stalwarts that they are in their own fields, I felt I was not really meant to be part of this panel discussion. But then again, I thought, am I not a citizen of this country? Do I not have my own views on what is happening in this nation of ours? So I said, okay, let me bring to this table what my perspective is about, especially on this very, very keen subject of welfare policies, whether it is leading to development or not. One thing that I'd like to also make a comparison and also take forward the discussion that my fellow panelists have been talking about, are we actually as a nation, when we create these policies, are we looking at the end result? Are we creating a timeline for these policies, or do these policies go on and on and on and on? Because somewhere I feel certain policies are meant to suppress, to keep those marginalized sections of society in that place so that it enables these parties to continue to be at the helm of affairs. While there are excellent initiatives that they have taken in trying to uplift certain sections, that has not gone the full stream. Let me just bring a small example to you. I travel quite extensively both abroad and within the country. A couple of years ago, I'd been to this nation of South Korea. And what I understand, there is a lot of similarity between South Korea and India. Both nations received their independence in the same decade. India received its independence in 1947 from the British rule, and South Korea in 1948, exactly on August 15th, from the hands of the Japanese. Till then, both the the citizens of each nation were suppressed by foreigners. But cut to say 2018, where is South Korea and where is India? Today, South Korea has a population of just 5.5 crores, which is less than the state of Tamil Nadu. I think Tamil Nadu has about 6.5 crores of population. Country as such, we have 1.2 or 1.3 billion. But this population is only creating a GDP of 2.6 trillion US dollars, whereas that small nation is today created a GDP of close to 1.6 trillion dollars. That actually means that every single person who's residing in that nation is contributing to economic activity. They really do not have to understand that we need the politics or the government to hand out freebies. Whereas still in our nation today, when we are on the cusp of elections again, so many sections of society are still looking out as to what freebies can the next government give us. I think that's a pretty sad state of affairs. Are we blind to whatever is happening around us? Sometimes I feel it is our own responsibility and our own inability to act upon a lot of these issues. Those sections of community that actually can have their say do not actually enter into the active participation to ensure that these sort of inadequacies and inefficiencies are cut out. And as a result, we have those sections of society that come up and they sway the vote in favor of whatever is going on, and we see these in a lot of states. While on one hand we have Tamil Nadu doing extremely well in certain sections, but if you compare, say, Tamil Nadu with the country of Korea, when here we have a 6.5 crore population and South Korea has a population of 5 crores, that small nation is creating almost 1.6 trillion economy. We are not even as close to that at all. So where are we heading in the future? If you look at the various welfare policies, I will just name a few instances which policies have been formulated in the past which went awfully wrong. Especially, I think, continuing with my earlier speaker when he spoke about the welfare policy on the aspect of hunger. He did speak about the midday meal scheme for school children. Now, I want to also talk about certain schemes that were happening in my own state of Telangana or the combined Andhra Pradesh. There was the scheme where rice was subsidized to 2 rupees about 2 decades back. Now, the impact of that, nobody actually realized the nutritional deficiencies that had caused by consuming too much of rice because it came at a subsidized cost, actually took its impact and its toll on women. Because historically, these sections of society were actually feeding on millets and the local produce, but they shifted to rice because it was subsidized, it was cheaper, and as a result, a lot of anemia actually was found in women. There is another scheme where the current government actually gives something called a gift to parents of girl children to assist them in getting married. It's called Kalyan Lakshmi in Telugu or Shadi Mubarak for the Muslim population. Now, I find that pretty regressive because we seem to be continuing that aspect of the girl's parents having to incur all the expenditure in terms of a wedding and trying to assess the girl child as an asset which needs to be invested in and then pushed off into another family. Rather than trying to give her skills, rather than trying to give her an education, rather than trying to assist her to be an economic participant in the society, why are we still getting into these regressive sort of policies? So here, these sort of policies are never going to help us come out of this poverty, out of this middle class society, and we are always going to be stagnant in this situation as it is today. So while there are dime a dozen welfare policies that have actually led to a lot of development, these sort of policies, as has been also mentioned by my earlier speaker, have actually regressed the effect of those, the beneficial effects of those policies. So in the long run, if we look at in the last 70 years of independence, where have we reached? And do we need to wait another 70 odd more years to actually make a name for ourselves on the global platform? Everybody all over the world does claim that India is the next emerging superpower. But if we continue to get embroiled in these sort of issues, that goal for us is going to be a very, very long drawn out affair. So I would like to understand how we as a nation can actually guide the forces that actually create these sort of policies. Because I think public mandate and public voice needs to be heard. And I think that is where we seem to be losing out, and we are not actively putting out our perspective or our opinion where it needs to be mattered. So the educated class, I also see in the audience today very, very few women who have actually come and been part of this discussion. But this actually affects each one of us. So my humble request to everybody is to understand what is it that we can actually offer, and they offer the guidance, our perspective, our opinions, so that we actually guide the policy framers into getting those policies to actually benefit the next generation of our citizens. Unless we do that, I'm sure that we will just be sailing in the same waters and we will be going around in the same way. So I'd like to understand a little bit more about the subject. I'd like to take questions from all of you, and I think the time has come for all of us to have the open discussion. I'd like to thank Dr. Narayana and of course Satish for inviting me over to this discussion, and thank you all for giving me a very patient hearing.